Thanksgiving was canceled because we can't afford it. I spent the night working late. The next day, my cousin posted a story, a full feast, decorations, and turkey for 20. Everyone was there except me. I said nothing until Mom texted, "Can you cover $2,800 for the mortgage?" I replied, "Ask your guests, then block them all." By morning, 41 missed calls and a single message. Please don't do this to us. Mom called 3 weeks before Thanksgiving with news that made my stomach drop. "Sweetie, your dad and I need to talk to you about the holidays." Her voice carried that apologetic tone I'd learned to dread. "We've been looking at our finances, and honey, we just can't swing Thanksgiving this year. Everything's gotten so expensive, and with a mortgage payment coming up, we simply have to cancel." I sat at my desk in downtown Detroit, staring at the spreadsheets covering my monitor. 26 years of family tradition, gone because of money troubles. Cancel Thanksgiving? The words felt foreign. "Mom, we've done this every year since I was born." She sighed heavily into the phone. "Believe me, Sophie, this breaks my heart. But between the turkey and all the sides and desserts, we're looking at $600 minimum. We can't justify that expense right now. Maybe after the holidays we can do something small, just us." Something felt wrong about this conversation, but I couldn't identify what. My parents weren't wealthy, but Dad's insurance job and Mom's dental office position had always kept them comfortable in their suburban Michigan home. Financial crisis seemed out of character. What if I helped out? "I could send you money for the dinner." "Absolutely not." Mom's voice turned firm. "You work yourself to the bone already, covering your apartment and those student loans. Your father and I refuse to take money from our daughter. If we can't afford to host, then we simply won't host. That's final." The pride in her refusal sounded genuine enough that I didn't push further. We said goodbye, and I returned to analyzing the Morrison account with a hollow ache in my chest. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite holiday. No gift pressure like Christmas, just family gathered around the table sharing food and gratitude. Over the following weeks, our usually active family group chat went silent. Normally, by mid-November, messages would fly back and forth about dish assignments and arrival times. This year, nothing. Aunt Linda posted something vague about different arrangements. My cousin Rachel mentioned quiet plans. Everyone seemed to accept the cancellation without protest. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and gray. I woke up alone in my one-bedroom apartment, made coffee, and contemplated my empty day. The office had given us Thursday off, but they desperately needed the Morrison analysis finished by Friday. The client was demanding, the numbers complex, and I was the only analyst who understood the portfolio structure well enough to complete it properly. So instead of cooking or celebrating, I dressed in comfortable clothes, filled a thermos with coffee, and drove to the empty office building. The silent cubicles and fluorescent lights felt surreal on the holiday. I settled at my desk and buried myself in financial projections and risk assessments. Around 7:00 p.m., I ordered Chinese takeout and scrolled through social media while waiting for delivery. Everyone was posting their picture-perfect holiday moments, my feed filled with roasted turkeys and smiling families. Then Rachel's Instagram story appeared. The first image showed a dining room table overflowing with food, a massive golden turkey surrounded by mountains of stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, sweet potato pie rolls, and multiple desserts. The table held autumn decorations with small pumpkins and candles, fancy cloth napkins, the good china my grandmother had passed down. The second image showed faces I recognized instantly. Mom, Dad, my younger brother Tyler, Aunt Linda, and Uncle Mark, Grandma at the head of the table. Rachel's siblings, Ethan and Sophie, various cousins and family friends who joined us every year, even Mrs. Anderson from next door to my parents' house. The caption read, "So blessed for family and this incredible feast. Nothing like Thanksgiving with the people you love most. #grateful, #family time, #Thanksgiving feast." I counted 22 people in that photo. The location tag confirmed my worst suspicion, my parents' house. Every single person was there except me. My Chinese food arrived, but I couldn't eat. I stared at Rachel's story, clicking through it repeatedly, studying every detail. The elaborate decorations, the expensive spread, the coordinated, effortless dinner required. You don't throw together a feast for 22 people spontaneously. Someone planned this weeks ago while lying to my face about canceling due to poverty. I drove home in a fog and crawled into bed without touching my food. Friday morning, I submitted the Morrison analysis and spent the day running errands, aggressively normal activities to avoid thinking about what had happened. No one from the family reached out. No, sorry we missed you text. No explanation for the lie. Just silence. Then Friday evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. Hi, honey. Hope you had a nice, quiet Thanksgiving. Quick question. Any chance you could help us out with the mortgage payment this month? We're $2,800 short, and the payment is due Monday. I know it's last minute, but we're in a real bind here. Let me know as soon as possible, please. I read those words 3 times, each reading making my blood run colder. The audacity was breathtaking. Throw a massive dinner party while excluding me, based on fabricated poverty, then immediately demand nearly $3,000 for their mortgage. The manipulation was so blatant, it almost deserved respect. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard as 1,000 angry responses flooded my mind, but anger felt too hot, too reactive. What settled over me instead was ice-cold clarity. I typed 4 words, ask your guests. Before I could second-guess myself, I opened my phone settings and started blocking numbers systematically. Mom, Dad, Tyler, Aunt Linda, Uncle Mark, Rachel, every person who had sat at that table. Everyone who participated in lying to me while stuffing their faces with food I supposedly couldn't be included in sharing. Block, pluck, block. Each tap felt like slamming a door. I blocked their Facebook profiles and Instagram accounts. Every communication channel shut down with mechanical precision. When I finished, I felt strangely weightless. Saturday morning, I made breakfast and started reading a novel I'd been putting off for months. My phone sat face down on the coffee table, still on silent from the night before. Around 10 a.m., Curiosity won, and I checked it. 41 missed calls. The number was almost comical. Mom had tried 16 times. Dad called 8 times. Tyler 6 times. Various extended family members accounted for the rest. Dozens of text message attempts that my phone logged but didn't deliver through the blocks. One unfamiliar number had left a voicemail. I almost deleted it without listening, but something made me press play. Mom's voice came through thin and strained. Sophie, please pick up. I know you're angry, but we need to talk about this. We can explain everything. Just please call me back. This is serious. We really need that money, sweetheart. The bank won't give us an extension. Please don't do this to us. The desperation sounded real. My forward response and subsequent disappearance had clearly shifted something fundamental in their calculations. They'd expected me to roll over and comply, like always. Part of me, the part trained since childhood to be accommodating and understanding, wanted to call back, wanted to hear their explanation and preserve family peace. The other part, the part that had spent Thanksgiving night alone in an office while they laughed and feasted, refused. I deleted the voicemail and returned to my book. By Sunday, the MS calls climbed to 63. The unknown number left 2 more increasingly desperate voicemails. The third one mentioned that Dad wanted to talk, that Tyler was upset, that Grandma didn't understand why I wasn't responding. Grandma, that mention stung. She was 84 and sharp as ever, and I loved her deeply. But she'd been there too, sitting at the head of that table, participating in the charade. If she'd wanted to include me, she could have questioned the obvious lie about canceling Thanksgiving. She could have called me herself. She didn't. Monday arrived and I went to work early. My boss praised the Morrison analysis and colleagues asked about my holiday. I smiled and said it was quiet and relaxing. No reason to share family dysfunction at the office. During lunch, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "Please read this, Mom." She'd created a new email account to circumvent the blocking. I had to admire the persistence. I hovered my cursor over the delete button, then decided to read it. Know your enemy, as the saying goes. The email was lengthy. Mom claimed Alinda had offered to host at the last minute and bought all the food herself. Just happened to have it at my parents' house because of the larger space. They thought I was too busy with work to attend. Rachel posted photos without permission. The whole thing was a terrible misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. Then came the real message. The mortgage crisis was genuine. The bank was threatening foreclosure, and I was the only one with money to prevent losing the family home. She ended with, "I love you so much. Please call me Mom." The explanation was well crafted, I had to admit. It might have been plausible if I didn't think too carefully about logistics, but the holes were massive. Aunt Linda acquired food for 22 people and coordinated everyone's schedules during the busiest shopping week of the year, all at the last minute. They thought I was working based on one casual mention of a client project weeks earlier. Rachel posted without permission, but no one called to explain for an entire day after. The mortgage story itself felt fabricated. Banks don't threaten foreclosure over one missed payment, especially with long-time customers, and the timing of suddenly needing exactly $2,800 after I'd refused to be their ATM machine was suspiciously convenient. I deleted the email and blocked that address too. Tuesday brought escalation. Tyler showed up at my office. The receptionist called my desk. "Sophie, there's a Tyler Williams here. Says he's your brother and it's a family emergency." My stomach sank. I could refuse and he'd make a scene, or I could deal with it quickly and professionally. "I'll be right down." Tyler waited in the lobby, looking deliberately disheveled, unshaven, rumpled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. He was 24, worked sporadically in retail, still lived with our parents while finding himself. His entire life consisted of half-hearted efforts, subsidized by Mom and Dad's endless enabling. Sophie, thank God. He moved like he might hug me, but my posture stopped him cold. "We need to talk. We're talking now." I kept my voice neutral, aware of colleagues potentially watching. "Not here. Somewhere private." "I'm working, Tyler. Whatever this is, say it quickly." His jaw tightened. "Fine. You want to do this here? Mom and Dad are losing the house because you're being petty about some stupid misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding." "Yes, there is. Aunt Linda made the dinner. Nobody meant to exclude you. Why won't you just listen? I'm listening right now. Is there anything else?" He stared at me like I transformed into someone unrecognizable. "What happened to you?" "You used to care about family. I do care. That's why spending Thanksgiving alone in my office while everyone I loved celebrated together hurt so badly." "You weren't alone by choice. We thought you were busy working." "Tyler," I kept my tone level. "Mom called me 3 weeks before Thanksgiving to cancel the dinner because of financial problems. If plans changed after that, someone could have contacted me. Anyone could have sent a single text message. But instead, I discovered through Instagram that I was the only person excluded. Because Rachel's an idiot who posts everything. Why didn't you call me?" I cut him off. "You were there. You ate that food. You saw everyone gathered, and you noticed I wasn't present. Why didn't you pick up your phone and reach out to your sister?" he faltered. I thought you knew. I assumed you chose not to come. Based on what information did anyone tell you I declined an invitation?" "No, but I figured. You figured. Everyone figured. Or more accurately, nobody thought about me at all until Mom needed money." Tyler's expression shifted from frustrated to genuinely angry. "You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe we didn't think about you because you're so busy with your fancy job and perfect apartment, acting like you're too good for us. You barely visit. You're always working. You judge everyone constantly. So yeah, maybe Thanksgiving was easier without you there, making everyone feel inadequate." There was the truth delivered in a moment of anger when manipulation wasn't working. I wasn't excluded because of miscommunication. I was excluded because my success and independence made them uncomfortable. My absence was simpler than accommodating my presence. "Thank you for your honesty," I said quietly. "Now leave before I call security." He left. I made it through 15 minutes at my desk before hiding in a bathroom stall to cry. Then I washed my face, fixed my makeup, and returned to work. Wednesday brought their biggest weapon, Grandma. She didn't call my block number or visit my office. Instead, a letter arrived at my apartment in her shaky handwriting. I sat on my couch and opened it carefully, knowing this would hurt. "My dearest Sophie, I hear there's trouble in the family, and I want you to know I understand your hurt. But sweetheart, your mother made a mistake trying to protect you from what she thought would be stressful. Her intentions came from love, even if her execution was wrong. As for the mortgage situation, I don't know all the details, but your parents are proud people who wouldn't ask unless they were desperate. I'm 84 years old, Sophie. I don't know how many holidays I have left. When I'm gone, your parents and Tyler and cousins are all you'll have. Don't let anger steal that from you. Please call me so I know you're all right. Love, Grandma. The letter was gentle and kind, painting my exclusion as misguided protection rather than deliberate slight. Grandma probably even believed it, but her words still contained the core truth. Mom made a choice, not a miscommunication, a choice. She decided I didn't deserve to know about Thanksgiving. And now Grandma was asking me to forgive that choice. Prioritize family harmony over my feelings with the unspoken deadline of her mortality as leverage. I folded the letter and made dinner while watching a cooking show. The sadness had transformed into something harder and more permanent. Thursday morning, 1 week after Thanksgiving, I found my car blocked in its parking spot. Dad's truck sat directly behind my sedan, trapping me. He waited in the driver's seat, visible through the windshield. This was illegal. Definitely a violation of my apartment complex rules. I could call a tow truck and never speak to him. That would be cleanest. Instead, I walked to his window and tapped the glass. He rolled it down, looking genuinely exhausted. Dad was 53, showing his age more each year, gray hair and deep wrinkles from decades of working-class stress. "Sophie," his voice came out rough. "Please just hear me out. You're blocking my car, I know. I'm sorry, but you won't answer calls or come to the house, and this is too important to leave unresolved. Move your truck, Dad." "Not until you listen." His hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to whiten his knuckles. "We made a mistake. Your mother made a mistake. We should have been honest about Thanksgiving. But Sophie, whatever you think of us right now, we're still your parents. We raised you and loved you your entire life. You can't just cut us off over one mistake. One mistake." I laughed without any humor. "Dad," Mom lied directly to my face. She told me Thanksgiving was canceled because you couldn't afford it. Made me feel guilty about family finances, then threw a huge party without me. When I discovered the truth, instead of apologizing, she immediately demanded $3,000. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of manipulation. She panicked about the mortgage. She wasn't thinking clearly. So the mortgage situation is actually real. He hesitated just long enough for me to notice. "We're behind on payments." That part is true. "How far behind?" Another pause. "One payment." One payment doesn't trigger foreclosure. It does when you've already refinanced and the bank is watching you closely. "Look, we had to refinance last year to consolidate some debt, and we're on thin ice with them. Missing one payment means they start the process." I studied his face carefully. "Why did you need to refinance for debt consolidation?" "Sophie, that's not relevant too. It's completely relevant if you're asking me for money. I deserve to understand why you need it." Dad's jaw worked silently. Then, quietly, Tyler got into legal trouble last year. We had to hire a lawyer, post bail, pay court fees. It wiped out our savings and maxed out our credit cards. The refinance let us consolidate everything and start over. But the payments are higher now, and with your mother's reduced hours because of her back, we're stretched incredibly thin. There was the missing piece. Tyler's mess had cost them their financial stability, and they'd hidden it from me because they knew I'd have strong opinions about continuing to enable his pattern of irresponsibility. What kind of legal trouble do you? Plus some other charges that eventually got dropped. The lawyer was expensive, but kept Tyler from having a criminal record. When were you planning to tell me? We weren't. It wasn't your problem, but asking me for $3,000 to fix the consequences is my problem. Dad closed his eyes. You're right. We handled everything wrong. But Sophie, please, I'm asking you as your father, help us save our home. The emotion in his voice was genuine. Whatever else was happening, the financial stress was real. Tyler had screwed up again. Mom and Dad had sacrificed their security to protect him from consequences again. And now they wanted me to complete the cycle. I'll think about it, I said. Finally. Move your truck, Sophie. Move it or I call the tow company. He moved it. At my desk later, I pulled up my banking app and stared at my savings account. Years of disciplined budgeting had built this cushion specifically to give me security to never end up in the position my parents now occupied. Could I afford $2,800? Technically, yes. I'd recover within months. But should I? I called my father's sister in California, Aunt Jean. We'd always gotten along well. She was honest in ways the rest of the family wasn't. After I explained the situation, she sighed. Oh, Sophie, I'm so sorry. Let me tell you something about your dad and Uncle Mark growing up. My parents always bailed Mark out of trouble. He was charming and got into scrapes, so they'd throw money at his problems. Your dad was responsible and steady, so they took him for granted. It created resentment that never fully healed. Dad's doing the same thing with Tyler. Sounds like it. And they want you to fund the bailout. I don't know what to do. Whatever you decide, make sure you can live with it long term, because this won't be the last time they ask. Her words crystallized my thinking. This wasn't about one mortgage payment. This was about establishing what role I'd play in family dynamics going forward. I spent the afternoon drafting an email, revising it multiple times before sending it to Dad's work address around 4 p.m. Dad, I considered your request carefully. Here's my decision. I will loan you $2,800 for the mortgage with specific conditions. This is a loan, not a gift. You'll repay me at $200 monthly, starting January 1st. We need a written agreement with these terms signed by both you and Mom. Missing a payment makes the full balance due immediately. Additionally, you and Mom will attend 3 financial counseling sessions with a professional advisor. I'll pay for counseling separately. These sessions are non-negotiable. Finally, we need honesty about Thanksgiving. I'm not demanding dramatic apologies, but I need the real explanation for my exclusion. Not Mom's invented story, the actual truth. Once we've had that conversation and signed the loan agreement, I'll transfer the money. If these terms are unacceptable, I respect your decision, but I won't provide financial help otherwise. I love you, but I won't enable the patterns that created this crisis. Sophie, I hit send before doubt could stop me. Dad's response came 30 minutes later. Deal. Come to the house Saturday morning. Well, have everything ready. Saturday morning felt surreal driving to my childhood home. The familiar neighborhood with bare trees and brown lawns looked the same, but felt different. I parked in the driveway and gathered my courage before walking to the door. The front porch still had the same creaky third step I jumped over as a kid. The doormat read, "Welcome," in faded letters. Ironic given the circumstances. I pressed the doorbell and heard the familiar 2-tone chime echo through the house. Mom opened it before the second chime finished, looking diminished somehow. Her hair had more gray than I remembered, pulled back in a messy bun. She wore an old cardigan I recognized from high school, the blue one with the missing button she'd never replaced. Sophie, please come in. I stepped into the entryway and was immediately hit with a smell of coffee mixed with something else. Cinnamon rolls, maybe. Mom had always stress-baked, and the kitchen aroma confirmed she'd been anxious about this meeting. The house looked different than I remembered, or maybe I was seeing it through new eyes. The family photos lining the hallway seemed to mock me now. There was one from Thanksgiving 5 years ago, all of us squeezed together, genuinely happy. Another from my college graduation. Mom crying proud tears while Dad's arm draped across my shoulders. Evidence of a family that once included me without question. We moved past the photos into the living room, where we'd celebrated countless holidays. The same brown leather couch that had hosted movie nights. The same coffee table with a water ring stain from the time Tyler forgot to use a coaster. Dad's recliner positioned in front of the TV, worn in the exact spot where he'd sat for 20 years. Dad stood when I entered, holding several printed pages. He looked nervous in a way I'd rarely seen. Sophie, thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy. He handed me the printed loan agreement, properly formatted with signature spaces. I took the papers, but didn't sit down yet. The power dynamic felt important somehow. They needed me here more than I needed to be here, and remaining standing reinforced that reality. Mom hovered near the couch, wringing her hands. Can I get you some coffee? I made cinnamon rolls this morning, your favorite kind. The peace offering was so transparent, it almost hurt. Cinnamon rolls wouldn't fix this, but the effort behind them revealed how worried she was about the conversation ahead. I'm fine, thanks. I glanced down at the agreement, scanning the first page. The legal language was simple but clear, outlining the loan terms exactly as I'd specified. $2,800, principal repayment at $200, monthly starting January 1st. Late payment makes full balance immediately due. Professional, binding. Did you have a lawyer review this? I asked. Dad shook his head. Found a template online and customized it. If you want to have your lawyer look it over before signing, we understand. The fact that they'd used a real legal template rather than just writing something casual on notebook paper told me they were taking this seriously. They'd realized I wasn't bluffing about the conditions. I moved to the armchair across from the couch, deliberately choosing the seat that put the most physical distance between us while still being in the same conversational space. I sat down and continued reading through all 3 pages carefully. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner. That clock had been Grandpa's before he died, passed down to Dad. It chimed on the hour. Every hour, a sound so familiar from my childhood that I usually didn't notice it anymore. But today, each tick seemed louder, marking time we were all wasting by not being honest with each other. Mom finally sat on the edge of the couch, perched there like she might need to jump up any second. Dad remained standing, shifting his weight from foot to foot. The nervous energy in the room was thick enough to taste. I finished reading the agreement and set it on the coffee table. This looks correct. We'll sign after we talk. Mom twisted her hands in her lap, the same nervous gesture she'd had my whole life. Whenever something uncomfortable needed discussing, her hands would twist and clasp and twist again. I'd seen it when she had to tell me we couldn't afford the expensive college I wanted, when she explained why Dad wouldn't make my volleyball games anymore after he started working overtime, when she sat me down at 16 to talk about Grandpa's cancer diagnosis. What do you want to know? Her voice came out small. I met her eyes directly. Why wasn't I invited to Thanksgiving? The real reason, Mom. Not the story you told afterward, not the excuses about miscommunication or last-minute changes. I want the actual truth about why you called me 3 weeks in advance to lie about canceling, then hosted a full dinner for 22 people without me. The silence that followed felt heavy and suffocating. The grandfather clock ticked. Someone's stomach gurgled. Outside, a car drove past, playing music too loudly, the bass thumping briefly before fading into the distance. Dad cleared his throat like he was going to speak, but Mom raised one hand slightly, stopping him. "Let me," she said quietly. "This is my responsibility to explain." She took a deep breath, and I watched her gather courage the way someone might gather up dropped papers piece by piece. Linda and I planned it together. For weeks, she didn't offer at the last minute to save the day. We coordinated everything, decided on the menu, divided up the shopping. Nothing about that dinner was spontaneous. "Okay." I kept my voice level, giving her space to continue without interruption. The conversation started in late October. Linda called me one night after her book club, and we were just chatting about the holidays. She mentioned how exhausting Thanksgiving always felt, trying to make everything perfect, managing all the different personalities and tensions. Mom's eyes drifted to somewhere over my shoulder, not quite meeting my gaze. I agreed. Said it had gotten harder as the family grew, keeping everyone happy. And then I prompted when she paused too long. Then Linda said something like, "Sometimes I wish we could just have one relaxed holiday without worrying about judgment or criticism." And I knew exactly what she meant because I'd been feeling the same way. Mom's voice grew quieter. We talked for almost an hour that night about family dynamics, about how holidays had changed over the years, about stress and expectations. I stayed silent, sensing this was building towards something she needed to say without me pushing. Your name came up. She finally looked at me directly. Linda mentioned that holidays felt different since you moved out and started your career. More tense, more complicated. She said it felt like walking on eggshells sometimes, worried about saying the wrong thing. The words landed like small stones, each one leaving a mark. "Go on. I defended you at first," Mom said quickly, as if that mattered. Told her you'd worked hard to get where you are, that you had every right to have opinions and standards. But then she asked me honestly, didn't I find holidays more stressful since you become so successful? Didn't I feel judged sometimes for our choices, our lifestyle? Dad shifted uncomfortably, and I realized he was hearing some of this for the first time too. This conversation between Mom and Aunt Linda had been private, the seed from which the entire Thanksgiving exclusion had grown. "What did you say?" I asked. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away this time. I said, "Yes. I admitted that sometimes having you at family gatherings made me feel inadequate, like everything I did or said would be measured against your standards and found wanting." The honesty was brutal and clarifying. This wasn't about logistics or miscommunication. This was about them feeling insecure around my success and deciding the solution was removing me rather than addressing their feelings. So, you decided to have Thanksgiving without me. Not right away, Mom insisted. That conversation ended without any decisions. But over the next few days, I kept thinking about it, about how nice it might be to have one holiday where I didn't worry about whether the turkey was dry, or if Tyler said something you disapprove of, or if our house looked shabby compared to your apartment. Did you talk to Dad about this? I glanced at him. He shook his head. Not until after your mother already told you it was canceled. She presented it to me as a done deal. Said she'd already called you and explained we couldn't afford it this year. You didn't question that story? I asked him directly. Dad's face reddened. I should have. I knew we weren't in financial trouble yet, not the kind that would make us cancel Thanksgiving. But your mother was adamant, and I took the path of least resistance. Easier to go along than to challenge her and start a fight. So you both lied to me. I stated it flatly, needing them to hear the words. Yes, Mom whispered. I called Linda back a few days after our first conversation, told her I'd been thinking about what she said, and maybe she was right. Maybe we should try one Thanksgiving without you there, just to see if it felt different. She agreed immediately, like she'd been waiting for me to suggest it. The betrayal felt fresh again, hearing the premeditation laid out so clearly, and the lie about money troubles. Mom wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I panicked when I called you. Couldn't think of how to uninvite you without explaining the real reason, which I knew would hurt you. So I invented the financial crisis. Told myself it was kinder than the truth, that you'd understand money problems easier than you'd understand us wanting space from you. Except it wasn't kinder. My voice stayed steady despite the anger building in my chest. It made me feel guilty. Made me offer to help pay for a dinner that was never actually canceled. You let me feel bad about your fake poverty while you were planning a feast. I know. Mom's tears fell freely now. I know it was wrong. But once I told that lie, I couldn't figure out how to take it back. And then as Thanksgiving got closer and the planning got more elaborate, I kept telling myself you'd never find out. We'd have our dinner, you'd have a quiet day, and everything would be fine. Until Rachel posted photos on Instagram. Mom agreed miserably. I wanted to kill her when I saw that. Linda and I both told everyone not to post anything on social media specifically to avoid you finding out. But Rachel didn't listen, and suddenly, there it was for you to see. I processed this information, piecing together the full timeline. So when I saw those photos on Thanksgiving night, you already knew I'd seen them. Mom nodded. Rachel texted the family group chat right after she posted, all excited about her pictures. Linda saw them first and immediately told her to take them down, but by then you might have seen them. We weren't sure. We hoped maybe you weren't online that night, but you didn't reach out to explain or apologize. We didn't know what to say. Dad interjected. We talked about it that night after everyone left. Your mom wanted to call you, but I said we should wait. Give you time to cool off if you had seen the photos. I thought maybe by Friday or Saturday we could reach out and explain everything calmly. Then Friday morning came and you needed money for the mortgage. The pieces clicked together. That was real or another lie. That part was real, Dad said heavily. The timing was just incredibly bad. We'd been stressed about the mortgage for weeks, trying to figure out who we could ask for help. Your mother kept saying we should ask you, but I didn't want to. Felt like admitting we'd failed as parents, needing money from our kid. When is the payment actually due? I asked, needing clarity. Monday, Dad confirmed. We got the final notice saying if we don't have the full amount by Monday at 5:00 p.m., they begin formal foreclosure proceedings. That's why your mom texted you Friday asking for help. We thought we had the weekend to figure something out. Then Thanksgiving happened, and we thought you didn't know about it. So Friday morning, your mom sent that text asking for mortgage help. She figured you'd had a quiet holiday. Maybe you were in a good mood. Might be willing to help us out. He rubbed his face with both hands. We had no idea you'd seen Rachel's photos until you responded with those 4 words. Ask your guests, I repeated. And then I blocked everyone. And then you blocked everyone, Mom confirmed. Sophie, when I saw that response, my stomach just dropped. I knew instantly that you found out about dinner, and I knew how bad it looked. Me asking you for money right after excluding you from the family holiday. It looked calculated and cruel. It was calculated and cruel, I said simply. Not the way you think, Dad argued. The mortgage situation and Thanksgiving weren't connected. They just overlapped in the worst possible way. We genuinely needed help with the payment, and the timing of asking you was coincidental, not strategic. I wanted to believe him, but trust was in short supply. Walk me through the mortgage situation. You said it was real. How did you get into trouble? Dad and Mom exchanged a glance, and I saw the moment they silently agreed to tell me everything. Last January, Tyler got arrested, Dad began. The confession hung in the air. I'd suspected something like this, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the gut. For what? DUI initially. He'd been out drinking with friends, made the stupid decision to drive home, got pulled over 2 blocks from here. Dad's voice carried shame and exhaustion. But when they arrested him, they searched his car and found things they shouldn't have found. What kind of things? Marijuana. Not a huge amount, but enough that they added possession charges. And there was an open container in the car, his friend's vodka bottle, which added another charge. Mom had stopped crying now, just looked tired and old. Suddenly our son was facing multiple charges. Possible jail time. Definitely a criminal record that would destroy his future. So, you hired a lawyer. The best criminal defense attorney we could afford, Dad confirmed. Cost us $12,000. Emptied our savings. Maxed out 2 credit cards, but he was good. Got the possession charge dropped entirely. Got the open container reduced to a fine. Negotiated the DUI down to reckless driving with mandatory classes and community service. Tyler walked away with a misdemeanor and no jail time. Mom added, no criminal record that would follow him forever. The lawyer saved his future. I processed this information, the timeline clicking into place. So in January, you spent $12,000 on Tyler's legal defense. That destroyed your savings and created credit card debt. Then you refinanced the house to consolidate the debt. In March, Dad confirmed the refinance paid off the credit cards and gave us a fresh start. But it also raised our monthly mortgage payment by $400. We thought we could handle it, especially once your mother started picking up more hours at the dental office. The catch was, the refinance terms were strict because of our credit situation after maxing out the cards. The paperwork specifically states that 2 consecutive missed payments automatically trigger foreclosure proceedings. No grace period, no negotiation. That's what happens when you refinance with damaged credit. But then her back problems got worse, I guessed. Mom nodded. My sciatica flared up in July. Got so bad I could barely stand for more than an hour at a time. The dentist was understanding, let me reduce my schedule to part-time, but that meant we lost half my income right when we needed it most. You've been struggling since July, I said slowly. That's 5 months of barely making ends meet. Why didn't you tell me? Pride, Dad said simply. Didn't want to admit we'd gotten into this mess because of Tyler's screw-up. Didn't want you to know we'd spent your entire inheritance on a lawyer because your brother couldn't call an Uber. The mention of inheritance surprised me. What inheritance? Mom's face crumpled again. We'd been saving for years, had about $15,000 set aside, planned to split it between you and Tyler someday. That money was supposed to help you both, maybe with house down payments or wedding costs or emergencies. Instead, we spent almost all of it on Tyler's legal fees, and you'll probably never see a dime of it. The grief in her voice was genuine. They'd sacrificed something intended for both children to save one child from consequences of his own actions. And I'd never even known the money existed until it was gone. Does Tyler know about this? About the savings you spent on him? No, Dad said firmly. We didn't tell him how much it cost. Didn't want him to feel guilty or burdened by it. We just told him we'd handle it, and we did. So, he has no idea you're drowning financially because of his choices. He knows we're tight on money, Mom defended. He just doesn't know specifics. I stood up and walked to the window, needing a moment to process everything. The backyard looked the same as always. The old swing set still stood in the corner, rusty and unused. The garden Mom usually maintained was overgrown and neglected, probably another casualty of her back problems. Behind me, I heard Dad sit down heavily on the couch. We know we made mistakes, he said to my back, covering for Tyler instead of making him face real consequences. Spending money we didn't have on his legal defense. Lying to you about Thanksgiving instead of being honest about our feelings. asking you for money at the worst possible moment. We've made a lot of mistakes, Sophie. I turned back to face them. Why did you lie about needing money for the mortgage when you already knew I found out about Thanksgiving? After I sent that text, after I blocked everyone, you left voicemails claiming you were desperate for the payment. Why keep up that pressure? Because we are desperate, Mom said. The lie about Thanksgiving was separate from the truth about the mortgage. Yes, the timing made everything look connected, but Sophie, we genuinely are about to lose this house. The bank sent us a final warning notice last week. We've missed 2 payments now, and the refinance terms we agreed to are strict. 2 missed payments trigger the start of foreclosure proceedings. Show me the notice, I said abruptly. Dad looked startled. What? The foreclosure notice from the bank. If what you're saying is true, you received official paperwork. I want to see it. For a moment I thought they might refuse or admit there was no notice, but Dad stood and went to the kitchen, returning a minute later with a manila envelope. He handed it to me without a word. I pulled out the papers and read through them carefully. Official letterhead from their mortgage company. Formal language about missed payments and default status. A timeline for foreclosure proceedings if the account wasn't brought current. The numbers matched what they told me. $2,800 to cover 2 missed payments plus late fees. The documentation was real. Whatever lies they told about Thanksgiving, the financial crisis was genuine. I handed the papers back to Dad and returned to my seat. Okay, the mortgage situation is real, but that doesn't change what happened at Thanksgiving or why it happened. No, Mom agreed quietly. It doesn't change anything. We still excluded you because we felt insecure around your success. We still lied to you about why. We still prioritized our comfort over your inclusion. And then we made everything worse by asking for money right after you found out. We know how bad this looks, Sophie. We know we've damaged your trust, maybe beyond repair. So why should I help you? I asked bluntly. Give me one good reason why I should give you this money after everything you've just admitted. The question hung there, brutal and necessary. They needed to articulate why they deserved help, and I needed to hear their reasoning before I could make a final decision. Why lie about it? She struggled with the words. Because holidays with you have become tense. You've changed, Sophie. We're proud of your success, but you're also judgmental about our choices. You look at Tyler and see failure. You question our decisions. Every gathering turns into this uncomfortable situation where everyone walks on eggshells, avoiding topics that might trigger lectures from you about responsibility or planning. The assessment stung because truth lived in it. I had been critical, not constantly or aggressively, but enough to create noticeable tension. Linda suggested doing Thanksgiving without you this year, Mom continued, just once, to have a relaxed holiday without judgment. We thought maybe you'd even enjoy a quiet day without family drama, given how hard you work. Did you consider asking what I wanted? No. Did it occur to you that exclusion might hurt worse than any tension? Mom's eyes filled with tears. Honestly, we didn't think you'd care that much. You've been so distant, so career-focused. We thought you'd be relieved. The words landed hard. They'd excluded me because they assumed I didn't value them enough to feel hurt by exclusion. And the mortgage story? Dad shifted uncomfortably. The financial problem is real. We were already planning to ask you for help, just hadn't figured out how. When you discovered Thanksgiving and got angry, we panicked and pushed harder than we should have. I sat with that honesty for a long moment. They planned to use me as their financial backup regardless of Thanksgiving. The holiday lie just complicated an already manipulative situation. Here's what happens now, I said. Finally. We signed this agreement. I transfer the money today. You start counseling next week, and we establish new boundaries. I won't be your emergency ATM anymore. Tyler's problems are Tyler's to solve. If you choose to bail him out again, that's your decision, but don't expect me to fund it. I love this family, but I won't participate in dysfunction. Mom nodded through tears. Dad looked relieved. We signed the papers. I transferred the money from my phone while sitting in their living room. Then I drove home feeling simultaneously lighter and heavier. The family group chat eventually reactivated, awkward at first, but gradually returning to normal. Rachel apologized for posting those photos. Tyler avoided me for months. Grandma called to thank me for saving the family. My parents made their first loan payment on January 1st, right on schedule. They attended all 3 counseling sessions. We had Thanksgiving the following year, and I was invited, though the gathering felt different. Smaller, more honest, perhaps. I learned an expensive lesson about family. Sometimes love requires boundaries more than it requires sacrifice. Sometimes the people who raised you need to experience consequences rather than endless rescue. And sometimes being excluded from a table teaches you more about your own worth than being welcomed ever could. The $2,800 loan got repaid over 14 months, every payment on time. By the time we were even, my relationship with my parents had shifted into something more balanced. Less about obligation, more about choice. We'd all learned that family doesn't entitle anyone to exploitation and that genuine love survives honest boundaries. Tyler eventually moved out and got a steady job, though whether he learned anything remains questionable. I stopped being the family's backup plan and started being just another member with equal standing. The story of Thanksgiving became family legend, though versions differ depending on who tells it. Mom claims it was all a misunderstanding. Dad credits it with forcing necessary changes. Tyler insists I overreacted, but I know what I learned.